Am I on? Yes. All right. Cool. Close this up. Uh, Maybe I can tweet this out from somewhere. Yeah. All right. Close this up. How do I see the Twitch chat? Maybe I have to open this. It's a new window. All right, this will do for now. Okay. Let's get to it. All right, today I'm going to talk about a new language. So this is a departure from our regularly scheduled programming. Close that down. In Discord. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this is kind of a departure from our, regularly scheduled programming. Move this down too. Hopefully folks can hear better. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of Go stuff for, I don't know, 5+ years. And all of my streams so far have also been Go related, mostly Athens related. Actually, I think they've all been Athens related. So this time we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at a new language that I've been really excited about, and that is the Crystal language. So if I go and check out the browser, you go to crystal-lang.org. I'm on the docs page. Let me just go to the home page real quick. They call it a language for humans and computers, which I thought was pretty cool. But the really important thing for me is that it's heavily inspired by Ruby. And I like Ruby. I never really got super into it. I was more a Python aficionado, and before that PHP. So those are my two scripting languages of choice in the past. Don't judge me for being a PHP aficionado, but it really has gotten a lot better since the PHP 3 days. But regardless of that, Python is another one for me. Python is really big these days in the data science field, especially, but also for web apps and a lot of the other things you would expect. You would expect a scripting language to do. So that aside, that's my tangent. I never got super into Ruby, but I always understood it when I looked at it. And I always appreciated that whole thing about how they prioritized developer friendliness and developer happiness over technically correct syntax and terse stuff, and all the stuff that you would otherwise see in like a language like C or C++ that just have these mountains of complexity, that if you know how to use them, they're really nice. You can just extract tons of power out of these ideas that they built in. But that's the problem, is getting to that point where you actually can use them and you can wrap your mind around these things. So I was a primarily C++ programmer for 5 years back in the day. I don't remember anything at all from I don't even remember how to do templates, their version of generics. There's all these principles that I can still read about and I still don't remember unless I take an hour or two to refresh my memory. But this, on the other end, is a brand new language with a heavily inspired Ruby syntax, and I can immediately pick it up. And that's what I'm really excited about with Crystal. The second biggest thing for me is it's type safe. And I guess tied for second is it's compiled. It's compiled by LLVM. If you're not familiar with LLVM, it's a modern compiler builder toolkit. I think they call it a compiler toolchain or something, but anyway, it's a library for building compilers, and Crystal is built using LLVM. So all the code that you see in here is compiled, and it's type safe. So like, if you go in here and you see like the do context, hi Ubbies01, thank you for joining. We're talking about Crystal right now, the Crystal language. So I was just going over how it's got this Ruby-like syntax, and I'm really, really psyched about that. So yeah, like I was talking about how it's type safe. So if you go in and you see like http server.new, the Ruby and now the Crystal way to create a new instance of an HTTP server is .new. But then with .new, you get this type, an actual type for HTTP server. And then on that type is a method called do, and that starts a block. And then you get one argument in the anonymous function in Ruby parlance that's called a proc. You get this one argument called context, and context is also typed. So the variable context is an HTTP context, and it has, among other things, a response type inside of it, or a response object inside of it. And then that in turn has a content type, which is a string. It's mutable, so you can change it to text plain. It has a print method on it. Method is different from variable, and just like the same as in every other object-oriented language out there. And print takes in a string. And then another cool thing is format strings, just like Ruby. Context also has a request object, which has a path property on it, and the path is a string. Or more precisely, path is an object that has a to_s method on it. So this format directive automatically checks to see if .path has a .to_s method on it, and it automatically calls that to change this whole hash squiggly thingy into a string, and then it puts it into the bigger string, and then .print will print that out. So there's a lot going on under the covers here that when you're learning the language, or you're really getting deep into a specific snippet of code in your project, that's the only time you really have to bring it up in your mind. But the rest of the time you can read this just like you would read Ruby, or most other scripting languages kind of follow this sort of flow. So it's really cool. Not only this is familiar with Ruby or other scripting languages, but also this is basically how you start up an HTTP server. And for me, coming from the Go world, it's about the same number of lines of code to start up a similar basic HTTP server. And it's about as easy to follow. So I feel like coming to Crystal, I have sort of the same level of initial understanding and the same level of initial confidence that I can start writing Crystal code now, instead of going to the other end of the spectrum, to the C++ side. Instead of being able to do hello world and like after a day of research, and then in order to get something like this working, I would be talking about like a week of not only researching the language and the syntax and all the principles in the language, but then also researching like what are the best HTTP libraries in C and C++. That's really the other side of the spectrum, is struggling just to keep your head above water. So, going down further, the docs for Crystal given that it's such a young language, I feel like are really good. So if you're interested, go down and read these docs. And then the last thing that I want to mention is concurrency. It even says it right here. It has these things called fibers, which are green threads, or in the Go world, it would be Go routines. And then these fibers talk to each other with channels. So this is really familiar to me. It's just like Go. Go has Go routines. In Crystal, you use the keyword spawn, and then in Go, you would use the keyword Go. And then you've got these channels. So this is a channel that can pass and receive int 32s. And then you can send stuff along the channel, and then you can receive stuff. And that's it. So again, I'm coming to this, and I immediately know not only how do you start an HTTP server, not only do I feel pretty confident in this syntax and how things are really working behind the scenes, but I also feel confident in kind of a big, complicated topic, which is concurrency. And I can pick this up. I can see we've got a bunch of files that we got from a glob. So this looks like every text file in maybe the current directory. We're going to loop through all the files, and then for each one, we're going to start a new fiber. I was about to say Go routine in my head there. So I'll try to stick with fiber. We're going to start a new fiber for each file. We're going to read every line in that specific file. So the one with F in it. And then we're going to send the size of that file along the channel. And then we're going to do another loop and just add up all the lines from each file. And that's kind of it. Like I literally have not clicked on this link at all. And I can kind of get it. Kind of understand, what generally is this code doing. Now, if I had to go write this code, then we would be talking about clicking on probably not only this link, but a bunch of other links too. But I just think it's super cool. I know enough from just other experience that I can come to Crystal and grok this, basically understand, the gist of what this is doing. And that's kind of what Go was trying to do too. If you remember, in the early days of Go, the designers said, we want this to be enough like C that, say, a new hire that came out of college that knew C, or someone who had already studied JavaScript could understand the basic principles on day one. So enough of me blabbing. Let's get to some code. So I wanted to play around with Crystal, and I have kind of a grab bag of sort of starter projects that I like to do for learning a new language. And one of them that I think for Crystal is complicated enough, but not too complicated, is basically like Bitly or any other URL shortener. I called mine cprox because I'm terrible at names. So I just made it Crystal Proxy. And it's basically Bitly. So you can post a new URL code to this /code path, pass in the URL in the body, and then it will register it. Then you can go to /forward and then put the code in, and it'll go redirect to that URL. And then you can take the code out of the internal database. So I took some time before I started this live stream. I did some of this yesterday, and I figured out just the basics of stuff like installing Crystal and the project layout. And I might not have everything completely right, but I think I got the gist of it. So installing, the first thing, I set this up on Mac and WSL too. Mac was super easy. Basically, just use Homebrew. And I think I could have used Linux Brew also, but that wasn't really on here, and I wanted to just follow this to the letter to start out. And to my surprise and delight, Windows Subsystem for Linux was on here. So that was cool. If you don't know, I've just started using WSL and Windows last Monday. for my primary dev machine. So I've written about it too on my blog, but basically I really want to give this thing a try because this is true Linux. Like this command prompt, this is actual Debian. So I went to this thing and I was like, well, what's going on here? And they basically said exactly what I was thinking. The installation instructions for Crystal are equal to that of the respective Linux distribution. So I've got Debian running. Basically, just click on this link. You add the repository to your apt repo, which is familiar for tons of other software, and then you install, and that's pretty much it. Install Crystal, and this part I haven't done yet, so I'm just gonna copy these in. I'll just copy them all in bulk. Well, now you know my local machine password. So it looks like those were already installed. And basically that's it. Looks like, I didn't know this, looks like for Ubuntu they have Snapcraft. And there we go, Linux Brew. I didn't even know that actually was here. Guess I didn't scroll down far enough. But I'm used to using apt anyway for everything Debian. So it looks like we've got it installed. And the ultimate test here is, can I actually run anything? So first of all, the command line tool for Crystal is called Crystal, just like Go. And then we can do Crystal-V. And there's some cool stuff here that I never really knew how to get with Go. To figure out what actual build this is for the actual commit SHA. Sometimes I'm interested in that because then I can go in and find the commit SHA in GitHub. And then if I need to file an issue, I can say I'm working off of this git SHA. But of course, they also have semver, and that's nice. So I can go to the git tag for it too. And then really cool, the build date. So this was built on Valentine's Day. I guess it was released on Valentine's Day. So that's cool. Again, that helps me figure out sort of the age, how old is the Crystal version that I'm running. I can do it right in the CLI instead of having to go over to GitHub and figure out when this version was released. Usually that means going to the GitHub releases page if they use GitHub releases and scrolling and figuring out, where's my version. And then, like I said, we're using LLVM. Another thing, we're using LLVM, so I want to know how old is the technology that's in my Crystal toolchain. So LLVM, I think 8.0.0 is fairly recent. So it's just nice to know a little bit about the internals as well. So that's why I like this line, this LLVM line. And then another thing that I sort of implied, all the Crystal development from like docs to the core toolchain to the LLVM interaction code, the standard library, everything is all on GitHub 100%. So that's something I'm not used to from Go, because Go was split between, a lot of it was on GitHub and then some of it was on Google Source. So it's nice because I'm super familiar with the GitHub workflow. So having everything on GitHub and remembering just one workflow instead of two, that's been really nice for me, just to read through the history of things and look at some of the standard library and everything. So, like I said, the real test is how do you actually run a Crystal thing, code. So dependencies, that's the first step. There's this shards dependency manager system. So you put in a YAML file called shard.yaml. If you're familiar with like Rust or JavaScript, this would be like in Rust, this would be like crates.toml, and in JavaScript it'd be package.json. So you name it, you put a version number, authors, binary targets, and I think you can do this for apps and libraries. And then dependencies. So I'm using a library called Kamal for basically an HTTP router. And it looks a lot like Ruby's Sinatra, if you're familiar with Sinatra. And then I'm using Numite for the key value store, or the database, to hold all of my, basically all the mappings from the code to the URL. Specifying the version number of Crystal that I need, and then the license for my project. So what I have to do then is shards install, and it goes and fetches these things from Git. So my top level dependencies plus all of their transitive dependencies. And this is the one downfall of Crystal that I've found so far. It pulls all the dependencies directly from GitHub. And that was a problem we had with Go till Go 1.9. So that was like for almost 10 years. Because the stuff on GitHub can change. And I think this does some work to try to get around that, or at least try to protect against that. Not really completely sure how shards works yet, so I can't say that for sure. But I do know that the bottom line is this is pulling stuff from Git. So that's not ideal, but this is a young language, and I'm willing to kind of overlook that for now. And keep messing around with the language and keep building stuff, and hopefully someone will fix it, or maybe I'll get involved enough where I can fix it. So yeah, coming back to the to my VS Code window, the next thing is literally just run the code. So I can do crystal run main.cr. All Crystal source files are .cr, by the way. So running that, let me run that again so it's at the top. So I just have a to-do in there. So yeah, if I go into main.cr, this is how you require another file. The lookup rules for require are, I think there's like 6 of them. Honestly, I don't quite fully understand how they're used in practice. And so I'm also not completely sure if this is the right project structure. But I ran Crystal init, and this is what it laid out for me, with the exception of main.cr. So for main.cr, my plan is like basically have one require, and that's it. Just so I can do Crystal run main.cr, just like that. The alternative would be crystal run src cprox.cr. Let me run that again, so we don't have the control character. And that's the exact same thing. So I just wanted to save myself 4 keystrokes. That's it, just because I'm lazy. So going into cprox.cr, I've got my module. Crystal init put everything here plus this end keyword into this module already, and then I put this just to see if some code would run, and that's it. Like, this is, you saw me just run this, and Crystal was smart enough to look in this module and then run this code, and I didn't have to do like a func main or anything. And I can just play around with this. I'm going to do our hash. Let's try it again. Yay! So that's the basics. Keep doing this. There we go. So I've got the basics down. So I'm going to start going into the HTTP part, and I'm going to basically just do it in here, instead of starting to go into different modules and split the code up, and that's just because like I haven't quite gotten that far yet, to be honest with you, to feel super comfortable in writing my code across different modules or different files. It's actually kind of telling because I don't know if there's a difference between modules and files yet. So that's a sign to me to like hold off on that for just a second. I'm going to put a whole bunch of code in this file. And then my sort of strategy in any language is start splitting that code out into other files and start to illuminate in my mind what really makes sense. Where do you put code? And from there, is there a difference for me in my mind between organizing things inside of modules and organizing things inside of files, if there really is a difference at all? So let's start. First thing I need to do is head over to the Kemal site. So kemalcr.com. And by the way, this is all on GitHub. My project is all on GitHub. So it's github/cprox. And if you go into the shard.yaml, the links to the two projects I'm using are in there. So if you pick this up later, you can just go into shard.yaml and find what I'm looking at right now. So going over to Kemal, I'm literally going to copy this and then just do a little bit of reorganization. So let me copy this here. I'll put the require up at the top. So we've got that going, and then our kemal.run, that should run the server. Looks like it's compiling. Oh, I think I can do, oops. I think I can have it print out the progress. Where was that? Link flags, stats. Yeah, -p. So -p main.cr. There it is. Looked like it was doing some code gen or something. That was a lot faster, I think, just because I had already started tons of the compiling and code gen and linking and whatever else it was doing. So it was super fast. I think there's a way to do a crystal clean. Not 100% sure about that yet, and I'm not going to worry about it because, hey, builds will be faster when I don't do a clean. So I've got something going on 3000. Let me go over here. And maybe, yeah, there's some WSL port forwarding stuff that I'm not going to deal with right now. I'll just do this with curl. So hello world. So yeah, if anyone's wondering, WSL port forwarding, off the top of my head, I can't remember how it works from the VM out to the host. I bet someone on here does know. But since this is an API at this point, let's see, 2 out of the 3 of my endpoints are APIs. I'm basically just going to do this with curl, and I'll figure out the port forwarding stuff later. So we've got our hello world, and I will say in here, please refer to github.com /cprox for REST API specification. Just because I don't want to have anyone really using this URL or this path. Doesn't really mean anything. So now heading over to Kemal, if I go down, it looks like I've got some routes here. So I can do, looks like all of the HTTP verbs except for options. I'm not going to use options. So basically I just need get and post and delete. I'm going to go down though and see, since I need to have these URL variables, code and code and code, the colon code, this is a symbol. I think it's called a symbol in Ruby. It's called something, it's not symbol, but it's called something else, but basically a constant value. In the strings for the paths, these are actually variable and they get exposed to you in your HTTP handler code as a variable. So I'm going to look up in Kemal how to actually do that. I think I saw it before. Views, templates, I don't need any of that. Filters, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Browser redirect, I am going to do that. So I'll just make a little note of that. And errors, send file, blah, 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 blah. Let's keep going here. HTTP parameters, so URL parameters. Looks like we do a colon name, like I was saying. You do a do, it passes in an env environment, and then you just do one of these. Env, I can never say that well. Env, env.params.url, and you get the name out. So let's do it. I'm not going to copy it. I'm just going to do post. What was it again? I'm going to go to my README here. So post / code and then code. Do env. And then URL code equals env. What was it again? env.params.url. And I keep doing that. Let me open this. And then I think, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure basically you just return a string, and it just gets automatically printed out as text, sent back as just text plain, and printed out in the browser or curl as text. And by the way, that brings up in my mind another cool thing that I like for Ruby and Crystal and some other languages like Scala, and a lot of functional languages too. Basically, the last value that you write down in a function, including procs like this one, that is the return value. So I don't have to do return this, which, because I'm lazy, that's great that I don't have to type return. But also, it's nice to reason about a function as a value too. So when I look at this proc, I reason about it as this. So I give it an env that has a specific URL parameter in it, and I get back the string. So this is a pure function. So if you're not too familiar with functional languages and theory and all that stuff, a pure function is I give it a value and I always get the same return value. So that's pretty much this. And that's super cool. I really like that. It's really easy to reason about this because I can black out this part of the function and just look at this and know approximately the return value, with the exception of this. So that was a sidebar. I basically can do this. Now, registering code, URL code. Gotta do my end. And now, gonna restart the server. Wrong number of arguments. Given 1, expected 0. What did I do wrong? Oh, it is a hash, not a function. There we go. That's interesting that the error message seems to think that URL is a function, but it is a hash. That's interesting. I would have thought it said URL is not a function, but alas, that's all good. So let's do this now. We need to do a post. What was it again? It is a post to code / and then whatever code. Registering code ABC. Yeah, okay. So I'm on a roll here. That's pretty cool. So now I'm going to do my other ones. So going back to my README, I'm going to do this one too. So we've got our get forward, then a code, do env, and here's another thing. All the code that I write I write code. If I notice code getting repeated twice, I write it a third time, and if all three times it's the same, then I'll factor it out. So I'm pretty sure that I'll be writing this a third time. In real life, I would wait until it's that third one. But in this case, I know it'll be repeated three times. So I am going to create a function. Actually, let me remind myself how to write a crystal function. That is interesting that I don't remember that. Oh, just a def, yeah. So def get code env, and do I do an yep, no colon, like not Python-y. So I can just do env params.url code. So the same thing, the last value is the return value. So I can do get code, and then same deal here. So I got my URL code, and then I'm going to go back to where I made that note about redirect. Redirect, env.redirect. So right now I'm just going to redirect to some static place. And then, that's right. See, I'm used to parentheses. I really like that you don't have to use parentheses if you don't want. env end. All right. So let's restart our server. Go back. Get code. This is some kind of a lookup issue. I think I just might need to define this up at the top. Maybe. Let's see. Maybe not. I wonder if I need to do require cprox in here. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I need to put it outside the module. This is another lookup thing that I do not understand quite yet. But if we can't make it work, then we'll just take it back out and rewrite the code everywhere. Yeah. For whatever reason that I'm not sure about, I guess you can't put get code inside of the module. Maybe I would have needed to require it from inside the module or something. You know what? Let's play around with it. Maybe I need to do something like this. So maybe not requiring it. Huh. Is it that? Let's see if one of these two works. Okay, that one didn't work. I already knew that. Huh. cprox dot get code. So you see I'm just swinging in the wind. Nope. Undefined variable or method cprox for cprox module. Maybe it's uppercase cprox dot get. Yeah, let's not play around with it anymore. So I don't know what's going on there, but let's just put it here. Oops. Okay, and we'll just get something that works. So yeah, that's another thing, like, you know, knowing the ins and outs, especially of things like lookup rules for modules, or includes, or in Crystal parlance it'd be requires. Lookup rules are something that take me maybe 3 or 4 code bases to really get. Even in Go, when those are fairly simple compared to other languages. Even in Go, it took me some time to really get that workflow, to figure out require or include rules, and look up paths for different modules. In situations like this where I want to reference a function inside of the same module that my code is, figuring out why that doesn't work. I have no idea why it doesn't work, first of all. And second of all, I'm not even sure where to look in the documentation. So like doing that live would have taken me a long time. So I don't want to really do that now because I want to get something working. So we did our forward. So let's go into curl. Let's rerun this. Okay, so let's go into curl. And we are now doing a get 3000 forward ABC. Let's do it verbosely. We've got our 302 found and we are forwarding. So that's cool. Alrighty. Moving on. There we go. Moving on. We want to then do a delete. So I'm going to basically do the same thing. Delete code do env and then deleting code URL code. Just gonna make sure this works. I'm pretty sure it will, just because I haven't written anything new at all. And I want to do a -x post. Oh boy, what have I done? A delete. Something is up with that. Delete code / code. Get code. What's going on here? It returns some huge. Kamal doesn't know this way. Okay, so it's looks like some kind of a 404. -v, let's see. It's returning a 404. Wow, what have I done here? Oh, this is it. I'm supposed to do an uppercase method. It's always problem is between user and keyboard. So I want to do a delete /code / then the actual code. There it is. So we do our 200 OK and deleting code ABC is the response body. Cool. Okay, so the shell of the server is here. That's cool. So now how are we going to store the codes? Well, I think that's where this thing is going to come in. This NewMite library. So I think the first thing is to create, well, yeah, I've got to do this. That one's easy. Put that at the top of my crystal file. Now, NewMite.new, and let's take a walk on the wild side and try to put this inside of our module and see if that works. So let's do cproxdb. Let's just do cproxdb. Well, wait. Path to the folder is the first parameter, and then the actual database name is the second parameter. So path is going to be the current working directory, and then cprox.db will be the database name. Okay. And then they say you can have multiple databases. I'm not going to do that. Then it looks like you just use it like you would use it as a hash map. And then some magic happens that it writes this into the file, I guess. I'm just going to trust that this thing does magic for now. I guess if not, it's just a hash in memory, and that's fine for now. But let's get it working, and then let's shut down the server and start it back up and see if our codes are still there. And maybe, that's cool. It even lets you iterate through every key. So maybe if there's time, I can go write an endpoint that shows every code and URL. Cool. All right, let's try. Well, delete looks pretty easy, so let's start with that. So we do db.delete URL code. And then I'll just say deleted code because it's done. All right, well, cool. Pretty happy about that one. That's a quick win. That's a cool thing about Ruby, Python, and now Crystal, and PHP to some extent. It's like, that is it. Like, I can get that as a really quick win, and like, wow, I got that momentum now. That's awesome. So, let's see, how do you put a code in? Yeah, it was the hash. So we've got our db URL code equals. Now I've got to do some JSON stuff. So JSON in Crystal, we're going to hit the Google. Parse an array of JSON objects. Array of item. Let's check out the spec. Nope. I don't want to figure out what to do from a test. Primordial attempt. That doesn't sound good. Crystal lang JSON handling. Handle JSON file of known format but dynamic keys. JSON parse. That sounds promising. Let's see if there's a JSON section here. HIJ. JSON builder, JSON parser. Blah, 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 from JSON. Huh. JSON. So JSON parse returns any, which is a convenient wrapper around possible JSON types. It's easy to traverse a complex JSON structure, but it requires casts from time to time. Okay. JSON parse returns a JSON any. It's slower than dealing with JSON mapping. Okay, what's JSON mapping? It's a macro to allow invoking JSON mapping with named arguments instead of a hashed named tuple literal. What's a JSON mapping? Okay. What does this look like? Properties. Okay. So maybe I have no idea what I'm doing. I just briefly read about macros like 5 minutes before this. So let's just make this a little easier on ourselves. When I go in here, I'm just going to make the post body this. So I don't have to get into JSON. And then I'm going to put it to do figure out how to do. So let's, yeah, that's going to make our lives way easier. So we're going to go in. I think it would probably be in the env. Response headers, content type. I thought I saw it before. Static file, no, no, no. Let's see, it's probably below then. Helpers, middleware. Parameters. Post form parameters. Oh, this thing figured it out for me. It figured out JSON for me. Well, I jumped the gun. Let's go back to JSON. I should have known to look in the library first. Super cool. Okay. Let's go back into here and let's do this. URL equals env dot params dot JSON, and then what was the spec URL? And then there you go, dot as string. And then I'm going to do registered code for URL. Registered, not registering. Wow. Let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. That would be super cool. Another thing would be like a super quick win. Crystal run. Gonna do its thing. Kamal is ready. So what am I gonna do here? I'm gonna do a post to /code and then the code curl x post localhost /code and then abc. Oh yeah, I gotta do the -d. I'll make that a string. Close it off. Uh-oh. What happened here? This looks like some kind of thing that's saying Crystal hates me. Wow. Okay. Platforma Tech. I think that's a company involved with Crystal. We did something wrong here. Let's take this out for now. Restart the server. Kamal's gonna take a rest. I bet you are. Okay. So it looked like missing hash key was when I tried to look up the JSON. env.params.json name as string. I probably passed the JSON wrong inside of curl, which is fun. I think I probably need to do, I wonder if I need to pass it as application JSON. Let's see. Content type application JSON data URL. Let's just do github.com. HTTP localhost, and then our code. Let's see. I need a code ABC, and maybe. Yeah, I do. Yes. Okay. Whoops. So that's cool. We looked it up, we put it into the database, awesome. And now we're going to forward. So we're going to do URL equals DB and then URL code. So we're going to look it up and then we're going to redirect to URL. And I remember seeing in Kamal in the docs, it said everything is a string to a string. Oh, actually, that was in the Newmite docs. It said the mapping in the database is always string to string. So I'm going to get back a string here and here. And then I'm going to redirect to that URL. So we registered the code for github.com, ABC, and then localhost 3000. Oh, I got to restart the server. Duh. And well, you know what? This is a good opportunity. Let's see if it persisted anything. Because I wrote the forwarding rule last time, then I restarted the server. So this should go to github.com. It did not. Wrong version number. Huh. 3000. I'm going to leave off the HTTP then. Oh, because I wrote HTTPS. That's funny. Kamal doesn't know this way. It's forward, not redirect. through to found. Hey, it does persist. Cool. Let's see if, yeah, cproxdb, it's some big binary file. Maybe it's SQLite or something. So we did our forward. Let's do our delete. See if it stops redirecting. Curl x delete localhost 3000, and we've got our code ABC. Now let's see. I think this is probably because there was nothing in the database. Which probably means I have to catch some exception, I'm guessing. Yeah, internal server error, blah, blah, blah. Somewhere buried in here is the exception that URL doesn't exist. I mean, the code doesn't exist. Oh boy, this would be a lot easier in the browser, I think. I should, yeah. Something about new might. This is like sleuthing through a needle and haystack kind of situation here. Static file handler. Ooh. I'm going to go ahead and just assume for now that this was a result of this not being there. So I think there's a way to catch exceptions in Crystal. Exception handling, perfect. Thank you, Google. Rescuing, so begin and then rescue. So we're gonna do a begin rescue, and then we're gonna do code, URL code not found. So let's try this again. This should no longer fail. Oh, there. Let's try this. So this should no longer fail. Code not found. Cool. So basically what we should do here, here is same deal. So I guess I could probably somehow break this out into another function, but I would still have to catch that other function's exception. So I'm just gonna type this everywhere. I bet there's a better way to do this in Crystal, but I don't know it yet. And that's okay. And then we're also gonna do this. I'm not sure if this throws, but we're gonna just guard just in case it does. And then we're gonna do another code not found. Not found. Okay. Cool. This looks like we actually got something done. That last thing, let's, under the index path, let's print out a list, just like a new line separated list of all of the URL codes that we have. Just because we can. I remember seeing in the NewMite docs. Yeah. Let's do that. So db.each, and then we get a key and a value. And then we're going to just do this. And we're going to do the key and then the value. Just so we can see all the codes that are available. So this, I believe, this should be empty. Yeah. So now we're going to post one. And code ABC. Blah. What have I done? It is /code/abc and then put the URL in there. Let's put that in too, so that we don't keep destroying the terminal. Code ABC not found. Interesting. It looks like this is crashing. So is there a way to add a value that I'm missing? Read values. Oh, interesting. I should have done that. Question mark. I guess that somehow reads it but doesn't fail if it's not there. All right, let's see. Did I do something wrong here? Post with a new URL. Oh, I forgot to restart the server. Codes, post to a code/abc. Get code. Okay, cool. We're trying to get the code out of the params. Okay. We're trying to get the URL. Code ABC not found is probably coming from there. Oh, duh, I didn't make any changes. Bleh. That is embarrassing. DB URL code. Read values. Oh, that's read values. Put some values in. DB hello equals world. DB URL code equals URL. Okay. What have I broken? That is a question. That is a question that I should ask. Actually, what I should have done is check in before I made this change, because then I could have seen what I actually changed. You know what? Let's try forward first. See if we probably should get this same code not found. Code not found. And then we're going to do our delete. DB delete. I moved that lookup under the exception handler. Oh, wow. That's the problem. Code, deleted code ABC. Oh, interesting. So let's try our post again. And then we'll put our data in here. That might have been what I did wrong. I put it afterwards before. Wow. I messed something up. Maybe I need to do this. Probably not. Huh. Code ABC not found. Well, I broke everything. So we're at about an hour. I'm going to fix it after I log off, and then I'll check it all in. I'm probably going to need to do some research in exception handling, or debugging maybe. Not sure if debugging even exists yet with Crystal. But I'm going to need to do some research on how to make this exception handling better, so I can figure out which part, actually it would be down here, which of these lines is actually failing. Yeah. It was working and then I broke it. So that was fun. I'm going to log off and check out the repo. Check back in the repo in the cprox repo a little later after I fix this, and you can probably see. I'll try to just put it in one commit with the fix. So I'll check this in with the broken thing, and then I'll check in the fix as a separate commit, so you can see what the problem was and what the fix was. Cool. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and checking out the Crystal language with me. Take care, all.